Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston born and raised, H-Town Rebel Space Cadet Sports.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, folks of all stripes, and distinguished guests, put your hands together for the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. Houston, we have Paul Salazar Jr.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, your Houston sports podcast for die-hard Houston sports fans from a die-hard Houston sports fan. I'm Paul Salazar Jr., your favorite die-hard Astros fan podcaster. I'm an actor, improviser, writer, creative multi-hyphenate, and of course, I'm a proud Houston native, and I have the receipts to prove it. I used to live in the Houston Historic Heights District. That's right, I can't say it, but I used to live in the Heights. Back when regular people could afford to live there. That's right. Now, I've spent the last decade or so as a comedy writer here in Los Angeles, and now, well, to be honest, I'm podcasting. That's what happens when you hit 10 years out here. You start absent-mindedly calling it the 10 instead of I-10, and the governor shows up and they just give you podcasting equipment. Welcome to said podcast. Space Cadet Sports was started as a passion project because most media is infuriating as a die-hard long-term fan of the Houston Astros. Here at the pod, we aren't doom and gloom casual Astros fans. Our hearts don't change with the wind. We're not fickle, nor are we worse than national media haters and avoiders. We're not here just to bury our team and to score internet points by dunking and making ridiculous points. We love our team and root them on, but we want to try to discuss the ins and outs of our teams without too much homerism. The key word here, of course, is try. I'd like to welcome new listeners, and of course, welcome returning listeners to what my brother calls the Paul Broadpod Ball Blog. Hey, brother, check out spacecadetsports.substack.com for the full blog experience, or the full blog experience, depending on your interpretation of my pronunciation there. As always, we're recording this transmission here in sunny Los Angeles, where I'm joined by my co-host and co-producer, the Roz to my Frasier, Carla. The dog is here with me. Long-time listeners of the podcast know that she may get on mic from time to time. She's got the hot takes on this podcast. I've got the cool, reasonable takes, hopefully. I try not to get too much into my emotions here on the podcast. I have another podcast for that. That's just therapy. My therapist records that podcast, not me. Today on the podcast, before we completely unravel into ridiculous jokes, let's get to the meat and potatoes here, folks. We are going to talk about our Houston Astros this Memorial Day weekend, taking a series against the Seattle Mariners, and upcoming today, we have a short series against the A's. We're going to take a quick look back. We're going to take a quick look forward today here on the podcast. But before we truly bite into those meat and potatoes, like I was saying, I have to give a huge shout out. I have to say good day, mates, to the Australian listeners. If you've listened to the podcast before, our little inside joke there. But if you're new, let me just catch you up to speed. When I started this podcast, we skyrocketed up the charts, folks. We were just outside of the top 100 of baseball podcasts in Australia. So, of course, I know I'm a big deal in Australia, so I like to shout out to the fans that might be still listening out there. Good day, mates. But let's get to it. Vamos. The Astros made me very happy this weekend. I'm sure they made you very happy as well. Some people were out here complaining that they did not play a game on Memorial Day itself. You know what? They deserved a day off. They had so much baseball they played in the month of May. They only had 2 days off in the entire month. One of them was yesterday. I think on Memorial Day, I might have construed that holiday there. That means I obviously had a really good day. I don't even remember what the day was yesterday. But obviously my point here being the Astros had a lot of baseball to play in May. a good portion of that stretch is behind them. June is a slightly nicer month in terms of just days off. There's not that huge stretch there, and that's important. Obviously, with the Houston Astros dealing with so many injuries, they need days off here and there to rest that rotation, to rest that bullpen, and to hopefully buy some time for Yordan Alvarez to come back. Please, please. I know we just won a series. I know we won a series against the we won a series against the Mariners. It's a huge deal. Before that we dropped a series to Tampa and we split a series with South Oklahoma. So that obviously wasn't like this was the best month or the best stretch of games so far. However, we still have some baseball to play to finish out this month, to hopefully change that record and to help us feel better about this team going forward. So what happened in this series? What's been happening that we're excited about, folks? I'm not going to sit here and just talk about injuries. That's what the last podcast was about. We went through the injuries that are plaguing the Houston Astros right now. But there are plenty of positives here still. Obviously, one of them is Isaac Paredes. I mean, we talked about it on the last podcast, but Isaac Paredes and Jeremy Pena have really been on fire lately, and we're hoping that they maintain that while our heart of the order starts pulling a little bit more of those weight of their weight, and I mean, Jose Altuve had a 2-home run game. He's been looking like he's found himself again. Jose Altuve is at that point of his career where people do a lot of hand-wringing about him. Here at the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, we don't have the official panic meter out yet. We aren't panicking here in the season quite yet, folks. We are concerned. Maybe we do have to bring that panic meter out at some point if these injuries keep piling up. But, we're not panicking. People like to panic about Jose Altuve. Jose Altuve is a streaky player. That's who he's always been. There will be times going forward that Jose Altuve will slump and people will start writing, is Jose Altuve's career over? Things like that. Is this the end of Jose Altuve as we know it? Jose Altuve's turning it around, which is really good to see, promising to see. It's something that we wanted to see here at the podcast, folks. So that 2-home run game, just generally, Jose Altuve, having better results from his at-bats is a good thing to see. It pushes it in the right direction for this team offensively as a whole. We need Jose Altuve to be the heart of this lineup. Maybe he won't always hit in the heart. He might not always be hitting third or so. But really, we need him as both the literal and metaphorical heart of this lineup to not slump. And it was good to see him have some success here in this series. We need him to build on that success, and I'm glad he can kind of silence those haters a bit. It always makes me happy when Jose Altuve silences the haters. I'm sure you're the same way, Astros fans out there. I think there's been a lot of hate with him being willing to change his position to left field and being willing to bounce around from left field to second base. It isn't Rafael Devers' situation here in Houston, folks. We don't have a superstar that might be getting a little bit older, being inflexible to helping the team remain competitive. We have a guy here that is willing to put his ego aside, and we reward him with wondering if that means he's aging and potentially isn't what he used to be. No, he's just in anticipation to aging. In anticipation to some of those skills dulling a bit. He's moving to left field early to help the team remain flexible and to learn how to play the outfield. So it's so admirable, and I think he's done a decent job in left field. I'm on record saying that he'd be fine, and I feel like he's been more than fine in left field. Sure, there's been a play here or there where just not the best angle or not the best throw. He didn't throw it to in the right direction, but he has not been unfortunate like a lot of people have been claiming that, or a lot of people were claiming he would be in preseason, in spring training. People were talking mad smack about our boy's game. He hasn't looked that bad out there in left field. So I've liked what I've seen from Jose Altuve this month, starting to turn it around, starting to silence some of that hate. And one more huge thing about this offense is, of course, Christian Walker. Christian Walker walking them off with a walk-off home run on Sunday's game to win the game 5-3, getting fired up there. Christian Walker is slowly starting to turn this around. He's like a cruise ship making a U-turn. It's been a really slow turnaround for Christian Walker. It's been a tough start of the season for him. There's no other way around it. We have been fairly kind to him on this podcast because, we're not haters here. We love the Astros. We're not going to sit here and just dump hate all over players just to score internet points. We're rooting him on because, honestly, he's not Jose Abreu. He's not Yuli Gurriel. We had two aging first basemen, we as our last point of reference, and we were really worried about their declining skills. So I feel like a lot of Houston Astros fans out there, you have PTSD. If you were in a relationship, I'd have to remind you that this is a new relationship. Don't let those old relationships poison your new ones. Give this new person a chance. And it's been a good thing to give Christian Walker a chance because he might be in his 30s, but he is not declining in skill the way that we were worried about those other first basemen starting to decline. He's not at that point of his career. He has plenty of time to turn it around. In worst case scenario, he's still a tradable contract. So we're rooting for him to be successful here in Houston. But even more so, we're rooting to see him actually get fired up, see him get that walk-off home run. Christian Walker is going to be a big part of the Astros the next couple of seasons, so we need to root for him to figure this out. And it looks like he's starting to figure it out. He's starting to turn it around. He's starting to get fired up there in these games. You love to see it. This team really has been battling. I think that they've been pretty fun to watch lately. Obviously we want better results with runners in scoring position. We're looking for a better offense all around. But we'll get to kind of some things that have been a bit of a struggle to watch for these Houston Astros right after a quick break.
Houston Astros, Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston born and raised, H-Town Rebel Space Cadet Sports.
Welcome back, folks. Let's talk about our Houston Astros and some of the struggles that they've been having recently. Obviously, we are talking about the two of our struggling superstars of Jose Altuve and Christian Walker having some up and down moments in the month of May, but looking like they're turning around here in this, specifically in the Seattle series, and we're keeping our fingers crossed for that. The other thing, obviously, is going to be injuries. We talked about it at detail in the previous podcast. However, I do think that Yordan Alvarez injury is the biggest thing that this team is dealing with right now. Truly, it was the biggest thing that the team was dealing with before Yordan went down with the injury. Yordan just hadn't really looked like himself this season in terms of results. Like, his at-bats looked patient. It looked like he was doing your typical Yordan things at the plate. He just wasn't getting the results that we are used to him getting. He was behind on some swings. It totally makes sense that he was dealing with an injury, dealing with a hand injury that was affecting his swing. But now that we have dealt with Yordan not really being in the lineup, at least the Yordan that we've known, it has not really been in the lineup this season. And this was a season we really needed the heart of the lineup to do a lot of heavy lifting. I said it in spring training. I've been saying it almost all season long that the 3, 4, and 5 hitters of this lineup has really been kind of the bane of the Astros' existence this season, especially with runners in scoring position. So having Yordan back is super important because he helps this lineup be a threat. He helps protect people in this lineup, and now that Walker and Paredes, Jeremy Pena, and Jose Altuve are starting to threaten again, he will have hopefully more protection in this lineup. Let's go ahead and talk about the other side of the ball, if you will. Here, let's talk about the pitchers. Pitching injuries have really been piling up in Houston. We see that things like Luis Garcia is throwing in the bullpen, and we get really excited because we need pitchers. Luis Garcia probably has a long road to recovery. He has had a lot of complications since his surgery. I don't know his status. I don't think that he's getting rushed to pitch for the Astros or anything like that. I think that we just see him getting some baseball activity, and we're excited because we could use the extra arm. Because right now we have two aces, and then we have some guys that are trying to either get into shape or trying to kind of make a major league roster here. Our rotation is looking a little tough, and they've been pitching fairly well, I would say, but the biggest thing has been that they're not really pitching late into games, which can kind of start to wear on your bullpen, which was something that kind of happened early last season with the Houston Astros and kind of plagued the Astros in the first half of their season. In total, I would say, is there was a lot of short starting pitching outings, which led to a completely taxed bullpen, which led to GM Dana Brown making a lot of moves. I called it the Dana Brown pitching carousel because there was so many minor leaguers that we would call up. There were so many veteran arms that we would get on the waiver wire or sign to a minor league contract and pull up for a couple of games, and then they would get DFA'd. Because of this, of course, I want this team to win, and of course, I want it to be with the easiest way possible with the guys that they have on the roster now. But if we get into a situation where we need some more arms, Dana Brown has proven in the past that he can kind of cobble together a bullpen in season. And this bullpen has been incredible. This bullpen has been great for the Astros this season. This is not to say we need bullpen help because this bullpen hasn't been good. The bullpen might be the best part of the Astros right now. At least, they've been very consistent, and they do a fairly fantastic job. No offense to Taylor Scott, but, since Taylor Scott had been DFA'd, and they kind of been relying on King, Ort, and Okert out there in the bullpen in bigger innings in the seventh inning and stuff like that, to kind of be the bridge to Abreu and Hader. This bullpen has really started to feel, you feel a little better about a bullpen type situation later in games for the Astros. You still want the offense to put the team over the edge there, but you feel good about our bullpen going into late games right now, and I think that is by design. We don't have the offense we used to have, obviously, so we need some strong bullpen arms, and we have some guys there. I really think that is a strength of the Astros. So me saying that I think that there might be a pitching carousel isn't because we don't have a solid bullpen, but more because we need some people to go in there and eat some innings. We need guys like Sean Dubin. We need guys like Brandon Belak last season. Some guys that can just kind of go in there and eat some innings when your starter can't quite get you where you need to go. So I think that being said, we are looking at this rotation right now. We have obviously La Grasa and Diesel at the top. We got Fromber, Valdez, and Hunter Brown at the top of that rotation. Then in the middle, you have our vet, Lance McCullers Jr., who definitely has had an up and down season so far, but we're happy. We're very happy to see him back here at the podcast. Obviously, there's been a lot of hate directed at this man. There's been a lot of there's so much hate directed at ball players, and not just like, look, a little bit of joking, a little bit of a little meme joke at an athlete every now and then isn't that bad. But when you start threatening people, when you're being ugly the way people are online, we obviously don't stand for that here. We support Mr. Bury Me and the H. Lance McCullers. But also the reality of the situation is the Astros and Lance McCullers Jr., I'm sure as well, were hoping for a situation where they're easing him back into the rotation. That's no longer the case with the injuries. With these injuries, they're putting a fair amount of pressure on Lance McCullers Jr. to execute. And that might not be like they're literally, rubbing his shoulders, being like, you better make a good outing today, boy. They're not putting that kind of pressure on him, but it's more of like they need him to carry a solid amount of this team's load right now, instead of ease his way back in, and be like, don't worry, we'll get them next time. He's not at the back end of the rotation, essentially, is what I'm saying. Being right there in the third spot, we're going to need minimal 5 innings and him to keep it under three runs or so. Kind of that. Not quite a quality start, but we could kind of feel good. A semi-quality start. We'll have to figure out a name for that kind of a start, folks. But that's who we're looking at. And then in the back of the rotation, we have Ryan Gusto, who has been kind of the rookie that's kind of first on the rotation. And then Carla disagrees. Ryan Gusto has been pitching a lot, Carla. Folks. With that being said, we're going to take a quick break so Carla can bark, and we'll talk about our rookie pitchers on the other side of the break.
Houston Astros, Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston born and raised, H-Town Rebel Space Cadet Sports.
All right, folks. Sorry about Carla going off there. I really don't know maybe it was the birds making her angry. But we were talking about Ryan Gusto being the rookie that kind of is slotted in there as the first rookie in the rotation. Young man throws a lot of strikes when he is on, and I think that ability to just throw strikes, pour it in there, is really what this team wants right now. They want someone who's going to go out there and eat some innings and compete. And it's really hard for some of these younger pitchers when they try to nibble around the edges and they're still figuring out their control, and sometimes they get into trouble with just not throwing as many competitive pitches. We also right now on the roster in the back of the rotation, we have Colton Gordon, left-hander there, and I think he's right now that last starter in the bullpen. We have Sean Dubin as the long relief out of the bullpen as well, and currently Forrest Whitley is on the team as well, who really isn't stretched out, but I mentioned because he has been a starting pitcher in the past. Maybe can pick up a couple of innings, not really in a not in the traditional long relief way, but maybe can have a couple of innings instead. So this Astros back of the rotation is filled with names that a lot of casual fans aren't familiar with. We also have, I believe, Brandon Walter, who was called up for a game recently. We had AJ Blueball, who was a rookie that was called up either earlier in the month or last month. Oh, my goodness. The time is flying, folks. It's almost June. That's freaking me out. Oh, my God. But instead of looking at the calendar here, let's talk more about these Astros pitchers. The back end of this rotation is probably not the back end of the rotation that we were thinking this team was going to have going into the beginning of the season. So with that being said, while we have been excited as a fan base, it's like, look, we need another bat. We probably want another lefty bat. It's going to be kind of deja vu all over again. Like last season, we're thinking that the Astros are going to trade for another bat at the deadline. I'm calling it now. At the trade deadline, the Astros are most likely going to trade for yet another kind of middle of the road starting pitcher, and people are going to worry that it's an overpay because they don't think that whatever pitcher that we're going to end up with actually is a good pitcher. Like Yusei Kikuchi. Yusei Kikuchi was that kind of mid pitcher that we traded for last season. Everybody was up in arms about the cost of the trade, but nobody talks about it anymore today. Same thing, like I saw a little meme about the Justin Verlander trade. Like nobody's talking about the Drew Gilbert and Clifford. I think it was Stephen Clifford trade, for Justin Verlander anymore. I not that I don't have faith in some of the pitchers, some of the package that we sent away for Yusei Kikuchi, but at the end of the day, sometimes you trade away prospects because you don't really know what they're going to be yet for somebody that you have a consistent amount of film on and you can make some adjustments for. And the Astros really did, right now, as of right now, May 2025, the Astros won that trade. So I do anticipate at the trade deadline a starting pitcher. And obviously the Astros don't have a lot to trade away. So we're not going to get a ESPN, A block, free agent that is being talked about every Sports Center episode. We're not going to get that type of a guy. We're going to get a guy that's kind of been struggling, middle of the road, needs to make some tweaks, and that the Astros pitching staff has a good eye on and feels good about what that pitcher brings to the table and the tweaks that they can make for them. I think that's what's going to happen at the trade deadline. It looks like all roads point to there. So with that being said, folks, I do think that if you disagree, if you think that we are going to get that lefty bat, let me know. I have been wrong before, believe it or not, folks. Most of the things I say on this podcast, when it's a projection or a prediction, I get completely wrong. I always brag about the things I get right because who wouldn't? But, let me know if you disagree. We'll check in at the deadline to see how this take has aged, but I really think that's what we're looking at, folks. Let's go ahead and look really quickly to these very short 2-game series against the Athletics. The Athletics from nowhere in particular, just the Athletics, and Major League Baseball is looking at you to make sure you don't say Sacramento or Oakland or anything like that. They're the Athletics. Don't get it twisted. The Athletics are coming. Or I should say, really, I said the Athletics are I don't know what I'm trying to say, folks. I'm laughing at Carla. The Athletics are coming to town, is I think what I'm trying to say, at least. We have J.P. Sears, left-handed pitcher for the Athletics, who is 4-4 on the season with a 4 ERA. The 4.44. Okay, good, yeah. I feel close to where I was growing up with those 4.4 being thrown around. He had 54 innings pitched, 42 strikeouts this season with a 1.15 whip. He kind of has very similar numbers on his career. Those are kind of those JP Sears numbers. We're hoping that this lineup that is nothing but right-handed batters pretty much will do some damage against the lefty here at home. The Athletics. I was like, where are they from again? The Athletics, just the Athletics are going to have to face Hunter Brown, who I don't think he's too happy right now. I think Hunter Brown kind of has a chip on his shoulder. I mean, he kind of always has a chip on his shoulder. He plays with that attitude, and you love to see it, folks. But I think Hunter Brown is going to go out there and shove against the Athletics, and I'm calling for a big game for Hunter Brown. I think this guy is just really going to go out there and give it his all and have some nasty stuff. And I would feel bad for the Athletic hitters in this game today. In the next game, That's going to be on Wednesday. I lost my place here, folks. Wednesday's game, the 28th, that's going to be a brunch game there. Wednesday brunch. Luis Severino is going to pitch for the Athletics. Severino has had a long career. His career stats, he's got a 3.83 ERA and a 1.20 whip with 999 strikeouts, so he's looking to get his 1,000th strikeout against the Astros in this game. This veteran arm is going to go out there, eat up some innings, and look to make history for himself, getting that 1,000th strikeout. He'll be pitching against Lance McCullers Jr., who, let's look at his career numbers like we did with Severino, right? He's got a 3.53 ERA with a 1.26 whip, 814 strikeouts, just, for comparison there for Lance. Lance is also a 31-year-old right-handed pitcher, but Lance has dealt with, I think, some more time on the shelf due to injuries due to Severino. However, this season, let's look at Lance's season numbers compared to his career. He's pitched 4 games, he has a 6.56. Goodness gracious. I'll get it one of these days, folks. Bear with me. A 6.57 ERA, 12 and 1/3 innings pitched with 14 strikeouts and a 2.03 whip. Kind of more of the same that I said from Lance's last start. It's kind of the recipes for success for Lance going forward until he kind of shakes off this rust that he has. He's really going to have to limit these walks. Limiting these walks is important for Lance McCullers Jr. While he was, in his prime, he was always walking people. It's kind of what he does sometimes. He has a lot of movement on his pitches. They can, when you nibble the edges, sometimes he miss. He has that big slider, has a lot of movement, can miss the edge. Lance McCullers can walk batters, but we're going to need him to hopefully set his pitches up very well, hit his locations, and limit those walks, because he's not quite as sharp as he was until he gets that sharpness back, with striking out pitchers, hitters quite as much as he used to. We need him to be just a little sharper with his command. So hopefully they'll be able to game plan to use his pitches that are really sharp on that day to set up other pitches and just remain competitive. And we need him to go 5 innings. That's why we need him to limit those walks. It's not just because we completely, want to win the game because nobody's on the base pads. That's a good incentive to no walks. But truly for Lance McCullers Jr., we want him to go deep into this game. We want him to have a lot of innings pitched and hopefully not a lot of runs crossing the plate. So we need him to not throw a lot of pitches to get deeper into the game. So we'll be looking for that to see how he does. I really think because we have Hunter going to pitch today, and because I think he's going to have a big chip on his shoulder, I think this team is going to go out there and play with some attitude. They're going to be a little rested after their day off. I'm saying the Astros sweep this short series against the Athletics. That's right. That's what I'm thinking. And let me know what you think, folks. I know that you might have a different take. There's only a small variety of takes that you could have on a 2-game series, but let me know what y'all think out there, folks. And with that being said, that's going to do it for this transmission, Space Cadets. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. We really do appreciate it. Please, if you've gotten this far, hit those buttons for me. Please like, rate, review, subscribe, share, bop it, kick it, skip it, smash all of those buttons for me. We are a small podcast and we only go as far as our listenership takes us. We are supported by listeners like you. So please share this podcast with a Houston fan or an Australian in your life. And if you'd be so kind, give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen. If you don't think we're quite at 5 stars yet, well, keep listening. I'll try to get better for you. Please check out the Substack. That's spacecadetsports.substack.com. On the Substack, you can put your email into that field. You get every single podcast, every single post, every single meme dump that I put on the blog gets emailed directly to you for free. Right now, I don't have very much behind the paywall. I like to get my content out there to engage with y'all. So please check that out. Let me know your takes. You can reach out on social media to let me know if you think the Astros are going to sweep this series as well, at Space Cadet Sports on Instagram or spacecadetsports.bsky.social on Blue Sky. Definitely check that out. We love it there on Blue Sky. You could also leave us a voicemail on SpeakPipe if you want. speakpipe.com/spacecadetsports, and if it isn't too crazy, maybe it might even make the podcast. I'll at least respond to you. I'm not gonna just ghost you there. And speaking of ghosting you, I don't know why, but speaking of, if you're like me and you want more weird jokes on social media, you can find me at Paul Salazar JR, making jokes, memes, art, podcasts, so much more. paulsalazarjr.bsky.social or paulsalazarjr.net, because I'm nothing but net. You can find my other Substack, you can find my cartoons, all the other ridiculous stuff, all that nonsense, if you nasty, on that website. You can even find merch. We have some podcast merch on there. Check it out. Thank you so much for listening. Remember to be the best that you can be. Keep your head up, kid. And as always, vamos Houston.